Today I want to talk with you about the promise of America. It's the promise of America. The idea that, the revolutionary idea that this country was founded upon, which is that our rights, they don't come from man. They come from God Almighty. The incredible opportunity of the American dream, what has enabled millions of people from all over the world to come to America with nothing and to achieve anything. And then the American exceptionalism that has made this nation a clarion voice for freedom in the world, a shining city on a hill. That's the promise of America. That is what makes this nation an indispensable nation, a unique nation in the history of the world. And yet so many fear that that promise is today unattainable. So many fear it is slipping away from our hands. I want to talk to you this morning about reigniting the promise of America. 240 years ago, on this very day, a 38-year-old lawyer named Patrick Henry stood up just 100 miles from here in Richmond, Virginia, and said, "Give me liberty or give me death." I want to ask each of you to imagine millions of courageous conservatives all across America rising up together to say in unison, "We demand our liberty." Imagine instead millions of people of faith all across America coming out to the polls and voting our values. Imagine millions of young people coming together and standing together saying, "We will stand for liberty." Imagine innovation thriving on the internet as government regulators and tax collectors are kept at bay and more opportunity is created. Imagine America finally becoming energy self-sufficient as millions and millions of high-paying jobs are created. Instead of the joblessness, instead of the millions forced into part-time work, instead of the millions who've lost their health insurance, lost their doctors, have faced skyrocketing health insurance premiums, imagine in 2017, a new president signing legislation repealing every word of Obamacare. Instead of a tax code that crushes innovation, that imposes burdens on families struggling to make ends meet, imagine a simple flat tax. Imagine abolishing the IRS. Instead of the lawlessness and the president's unconstitutional executive amnesty, imagine a president that finally secures the borders. And imagine a legal immigration system that welcomes and celebrates those who come to achieve the American dream. Instead of a federal government that works to undermine our values, imagine a federal government that works to defend the sanctity of human life, and to uphold the sacrament of marriage. Instead of a government that works to undermine our Second Amendment rights, that seeks to ban our ammunition, imagine a federal government that protects the right to keep and bear arms of all law-abiding Americans. Instead of a federal government that seeks to dictate school curriculum through Common Core. Imagine repealing every word of Common Core. Imagine embracing school choice as the civil rights issue of the next generation. That every single child, regardless of race, regardless of ethnicity, regardless of wealth or zip code, every child in America has a right to a quality education. And that's true from all of the above, whether it is at public schools or charter schools or private schools or Christian schools or parochial schools or home schools. Every child. Instead of a president who boycotts Prime Minister Netanyahu, imagine a president who stands unapologetically with the nation of Israel. Instead of a president who seeks to go to the United Nations to end run Congress and the American people.
That's horrible.
Imagine a president who says, I will honor the Constitution, and under no circumstances will Iran be allowed to acquire a nuclear weapon. Imagine a president who says we will stand up and defeat radical Islamic terrorism. And we will call it by its name. Now, all of these seem difficult. Indeed, to some, they may seem unimaginable. And yet, if you look in the history of our country, imagine it's 1775, and you and I were sitting there in Richmond listening to Patrick Henry say, give me liberty or give me death. Imagine it's 1776, and we were watching the 54 signers of the Declaration of Independence stand together and pledge their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor to igniting the promise of America. Imagine it was 1777, and we were watching General Washington as he lost battle after battle after battle. In the freezing cold, as his soldiers with no shoes were dying, fighting for freedom against the most powerful army in the world. That too seemed unimaginable. From the dawn of this country, at every stage, America has enjoyed God's providential blessing. Over and over again, when we faced impossible odds, the American people rose to the challenge. God's blessing has been on America from the very beginning of this nation. And I believe God isn't done with America yet. The power of the American people when we rise up and stand for liberty knows no bounds. I believe in you. I believe in the power of millions of courageous conservatives rising up to reignite the promise of America. And that is why today I am announcing that I'm running for President of the United States. It is a time for truth. It is a time for liberty. It is a time to reclaim the Constitution of the United States. I am honored to stand with each and every one of you, courageous conservatives, as we come together to reclaim the promise of America, to reclaim the mandate, the hope and opportunity for our children and our children's children. We stand together for liberty. This is our fight. The answer will not come from Washington. It will come only from the men and women across this country, from men and women, from people of faith, from lovers of liberty, from people who respect the Constitution. It will only come as it has come at every other time of challenge in this country, when the American people stand together and say, we will get back to the principles that have made this country great. We will get back and restore that shining city on a hill that is the United States of America. Thank you, and God bless you.